Good evening and welcome to the show. Tonight, we're going to discuss how certain mayors of certain cities are now calling Texas Governor Abbott and Arizona Governor Doug Ducey cowards for allegedly shipping migrants to their city via buses. Now, there's some irony here that we're going to get into, and that is because some of these mayors just a few months ago were talking about how they were proud to be sanctuary cities and they were going to welcome the migrants that were coming into this country. In fact, they said that we needed to have programs for them, language programs, healthcare programs, school programs, you name it. And that these undocumented individuals were welcome in their cities. Now, just a few short months later, in some cases, like the case with New York City Mayor Eric Adams, their tune has changed. D.C. Mayor Muriel just a few short years ago was talking about how her city was going to be a sanctuary city, a safe haven for all of these individuals. But now, once again, her tune is changing. But why are they now calling the governors of the states, which are being flooded with undocumented individuals that are coming over the border illegally, now, because they are putting them on buses and sending to these cities, they're being called cowards? Now, if you recall, Eric Adams, while running for mayor of New York City, was very vocal about his stance on how the city should treat undocumented individuals. We found the video. Have a listen.
Let's have immediate translation services to assist that people can have access to the services that are already available. We have to expand NYC care to make sure everyone has health care. We need to make sure we have proper translation services in our schools so that we can start building out the future as well. And I too take my hat off to the state Senate. That was the right thing to do, because when an immigrant walks into the store and buy a loaf of bread, no one asks, what is your documentation?
Thank you, and now, just recently, just a few days ago, Eric Adams is changing his tune. Now, all of a sudden, it seems that these floods of people, maybe being sent via bus from Texas and Arizona, are now making things uncomfortable in New York City. And it's adversely affecting the citizens of New York City, whoever's left in New York City, that is. We don't know who is actually still in New York City dealing with this. The crime spiking through the roof, police being defunded, drugs, feces, everything you can imagine on the streets. But now, let's have a listen to what Eric Adams is saying just a few short months later.
We're reaching out to the federal government and stating this is a real burden on New Yorkers as we're trying to do the right thing. We already, as I stated, we already have an overburdened shelter system. So now we're talking about, as you stated, food, clothing, school. This is going to impact our schools, because we do not turn away individuals because they're undocumented. Translation services. There's just a whole host of things that this is going to produce, and that's why we need help.
A bit different, wouldn't you say? And now the same goes for D.C. D.C. has been receiving some busloads of migrants, and if you recall, just a few short years ago, D.C. Mayor Muriel was talking about how sanctuary city and welcoming and do all these things for the people and melting pot and this, that, and which is great. They even spent thousands and thousands of dollars on an ad talking about how they were going to welcome all these people. And it included interpretive dance and everything. Go ahead, check it out.
Hi, I'm Muriel Bowser, the mayor of Washington, D.C. Here in the nation's capital, we support the thousands of immigrants, green card holders, dreamers, and those with temporary protective status who make our communities better.
We celebrate every immigrant who is now a part of our D.C. community. We celebrate those seeking citizenships and those who are not, and those who are still trying to navigate and figure out what's best for them and their families. We stand together and say, no matter what your plan is, DC is here for you.
However, today, Mayor Bowser's tone has changed just a little bit. Now, all of a sudden, they need federal help. They need help. They need help from the federal government. They're being overwhelmed. They can't handle it. Now it's a problem. When they were on their high horse talking about all the great things that they were going to do and give them, just hand out all these different programs and money and all these opportunity. But now, when the rubber meets the road, now it's all of a sudden a problem. Here's Muriel Bowser in a recent news interview.
How significant is this influx? How many people?
Well, this is a very significant issue. We have for sure called on the federal government to work across state lines to prevent people from really being tricked into getting on buses. But I fear that they're being tricked into nationwide bus trips when their final destinations are places all over the United States of America.
Oh, so now we get it. Now we get it. Because it's one thing to say we welcome you, and when you come one, come all, we're going to give you everything under the sun. However, it's a whole nother story once they arrive and people in the city, the residents of the city, Americans, hardworking Americans paying their taxes, paying their city taxes, federal taxes. Now their lives are being affected. Crime spiking. Now, all of a sudden, it's a burden. And now, all of a sudden, it is cowardly for Texas Governor Greg Abbott, Arizona Governor Doug Ducey, to be sending the migrants via bus to these cities. Why would that be cowardly? Eric Adams says they are coming across the border to Texas and Arizona. You should keep them there. Well, it's very convenient for someone who is a mayor in a state that doesn't border Mexico. That's very convenient for him to say. It's very convenient for him to say 1 minute, we welcome everyone, we welcome all, and then the next minute, hey, don't send them here via bus. How dare you? You should keep them where they're coming into the country, in Texas, in Arizona. But it's no different. It's no different from what we're seeing on the federal level, right? If you recall, just a few short years ago, there was a story about President Trump building the wall. And when the talk of the wall was about, many news networks and, of course, people on certain sides would say the wall is racist, it's xenophobic, it's everything under the sun. And Trump was all these things because he was building the border wall. Now, all of a sudden, a report came out. And the report says that the Biden administration is restarting the building of the border wall in certain areas, and they're calling it filling the gaps. They are filling the gaps of the border wall where Trump's wall kind of ended. They're now filling in those gaps. So they're building a wall. Isn't it funny how we haven't heard anyone say how this filling of the gaps, building more wall, let's call it what it is, building more wall, isn't it funny how now all of a sudden the Biden administration building walls along the border is not racist. It's not xenophobic. It's not anti-migrant. It's not these horrible things. How is that? Why is that? Why are the same news networks and the same people who called President Trump a racist for doing that, not calling President Biden a racist for literally doing the same exact thing in literally the same exact place. What changed? We don't know. Now, when the Biden administration, in the middle of the night, was flying airplanefuls of migrants to various states around the country, nobody said a word, if you recall. And Fox News' Peter Doocy questioned then White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki about it, and she just kind of denied it. She didn't really say that they weren't. She just said, well, we're not doing it in the middle of the night. We're doing it in the early morning hours.
Administration flying thousands of migrants from the border in the middle of the night.
Here we are talking about early flights, earlier than you might like to take a flight.
You see how that works, right? You see how that works? See how the spin goes in? Well, it's not in the middle of the night. It's just at 3 a.m., 2 a.m., 1 a.m. It's not in the middle of the night. That's just really early in the morning. So now, when Governor Abbott is doing it in broad daylight, now he's a coward. How dare he? Once again, why, when the federal government was doing it using airplanes, was nothing said? But now, when the governors of those states are doing it via buses in broad daylight, they're not hiding it. They're not sneaking it in the middle of the night. They're doing it outright. And they're letting people know we're sending the busloads of these people to these Democrat-run cities who are saying they are welcoming it. Now, all of a sudden, it's a problem. That sounds like hypocrisy to me. In fact, I think that's the definition of hypocrisy. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you think that sending airplanefuls of migrants to different states around the country in the middle of the night is any different than sending busloads of migrants to Democratic cities across the country? New York, D.C., Baltimore. Is there a problem in doing that? If we're sending them via plane, what's the problem with sending them via bus during the daylight hours? Is that a problem? And should anyone call these mayors out? These mayors who forget their videos of them saying what they said a few years ago and even a few months ago, they're on YouTube. We can look them up very easily. So now, what should be said to them? Have they no connection to reality that we know what they said out of one side of their mouth and now they're saying something else? And is it wrong? Is it wrong for Governor Abbott and Governor Ducey to be sending these migrants via buses to these cities? Let me know. Let me know what you think. Do you live in one of these cities? How would you feel? Do you live in one of the states that was getting airplanefuls of migrants being sent in the middle of the night? How do you feel about that? We're in a society right now where wrong isn't wrong and right isn't right. Now everything's upside down. What's good for one is not good for the other. And what's wrong here isn't wrong over here. It's very odd. Anyway, if you like this video, please share this video. Share it with someone who you think would find it interesting. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. If you're listening via podcast, be sure you are subscribed. When you subscribe, you get notifications, of course. That's the most important thing. So you can let us know when new videos come up. And you'll also know about other videos that you can check out. Because if you like this one, you might like one of these. So check them out. Thank you for watching. Make sure you're tuned in to 221 Tactical for everything you need, training-wise, gear-wise, apparel-wise, 221btactical.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.